I had to turn off Keith Urban, but we're going to get back into it now. So when we left off, we were going through this form, and I said there was going to be here, we're going to have a row, which is basically this is one row. And in this row, there are columns. So here's a column up and down, here's a column, here's a column, and there are 6 columns here. Okay, so what we did, don't click on anything, come on now, is we went through here, and this is going to be 2 rows and 1 column, and then all of these ones are going to be the same. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to go through here, fix the formatting so that these rows look like these rows. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, we have our CSS, and all of these columns are called column MD2, like this. So we have column MD2, and then we're going to display grid template rows. So the first one should take up 20%. The second row, this one, should take up 50%, and these should just be automatic. And the padding at the bottom means put some space between here and the container that it's in. So you can imagine it's an imaginary box around this row, and there's some space here, but after each one. And the padding right is just so that we can keep some space between the columns. But I don't like this number, so we're going to do another prime number, 11%. And kind of see what it gives us. Should space it out. But a second I start live streaming, everything takes longer. And then we see we have each of these rows. That'll be row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. See, now we got more space in between them. And the button is formatted with the famous mint button, mint button, mint, mint, mint. Car clubs are available on the actual website, driverz.world. Go to the mint page, and you can experience the mint button firsthand, of course. But we're not worried about that right now. We are worried about getting the rest of these 3 columns to look like these 2. Okay, so now we're going to pay attention here. And the practical way to code is always use your templates. Don't sit here and try to reinvent the wheel every time you code. Which I didn't include figuring out the format for these columns because I really did have to go through there and reinvent the wheel. And that took me about an hour or so of just fidgeting around until we got something like this. So what we're doing is we're saying that this MD2, column MD2, is 1 column in part of a larger row, which is here, starts here. And the MD3 is going to be the first column that we have separate from the column MD2s, and it's only going to have 2 rows in it. And you see here I didn't put any divs around it, so maybe I could do that, but also at the same time, it works. It works, except that it doesn't show the no file found. Anyways, let's look at this column MD2. We're going to go through and we're going to create rows inside of a column. And later on, we're also going to just, when we get into our mobile setup, which we'll do after we fix all these columns, we're going to be calling these MD2s again. All right. This is going to be row 1 like this. I'm using row 1 and column MD2s again because I don't want to create new classes. And then if I create new classes, I will be hating life because I have to go through CSS and write more CSS. And the less CSS you can write, the better always. Because CSS is just a lot of work. Okay, so we have this one already set up. And then we'll go through here. And right now I'm just typing because it's kind of relaxing to type. Oh, come on. Usually you can just tab enter and save yourself from making these typos. But I'm not doing that right now because it's not giving me the option to. My computer's slow on the live streams. So we take this. Always just take your div at the end and figure out where it goes. This div is for this class name right here. So it's going to go outside of that. All right. And then we just take this div right here and tab it over. Okay. So there's going to be some more things that we have to do here. Like this is going to get the mint button treatment text white. We're going to take out text gray because it's overriding the color settings that I have for mint button. Okay. And let's go down here. And we'll go here again, div. Class name. Did the wrong slash. It's all good. Take this, control exit, and we move it here, control V it. Then we take this, and we're going to tab it over. Okay. And this is going to get int3. And this is going to get row 4 treatment. So it's going to go like this. Div class name equals row 4. Then we'll close it out. We'll control X that. And we'll shift tab, control V. Then we bring this form control all the way over. And then we're just going to get like a little stacked effect here, just because it's otherwise tedious to look at. And here's the closing of the form control. So some things you close within their own brackets. Basically, you see how the caret opens and then it closes on the caret. But here, we open it and we don't close it on the caret. You close it out here. But for form control and images and stuff like that. I'm not going to worry about it. So you can already see we did all this. Should be good to go. So if I do this, and then we wait ever so patiently, and the third column should adjust. Any day now. Let's do the same thing here. It's gonna look like this. Row 1. Boom. See that? It's all set up, ready to go. So we just got to do the same thing again here. Now, the question is, when do you do the mobile edits for your website? And the answer is as quickly as possible. Because it doesn't make sense anymore to just have a computer-ready version of your website up. You always want to have mobile immediately coming out with the updates, and that'll allow you to always be on the up and up with people who are checking out your website. So there is one page on the Driverz website that I know of, I think there might be some more too, that is not set up for mobile, and that's the pit crew page. That being the page that is where everybody on the team is introduced. So maybe I'll go through that in another video as we get to it. But right now the priority is to get this page done. So I kind of want to stay on that and don't let anything get in my way there. Because it's easy too when you're programming, there's so much stuff going on. And if you start working on this code and then you work on this other code and then you go back to this code, then you really won't get anything done. So always, it's just like pick one thing, work on it till it's done, and then move on to the next thing. 4. Okay. So we got that coming up. That should be good. Of course, our DRL is off again. What did we call DRL? Text white 2. So easiest way to go through a CSS file. Text, Control F. It's like it can't make up its mind. Is it right? Is it wrong? It's definitely wrong. Yeah, so it's just taking forever to load up. Bam, bam. All right, so now we're getting something that's worthwhile here. All right. Beautiful. And that's moved over. And then our last pet peeve. And the spacing is just horrible. But I'm not worried about that right now. Let's finish this last one. And then let's see if we can mobilize this bad boy. Okay, so we're just going to go back to our thing, our code, and find the next column that doesn't have anything set up. So we're just adding containers. That's all the divs are, just containers. And containers hold content. That'd be text or video or buttons or whatever. The rental bank. Okay. So let's type it out. Another thing, guys, if you are getting the packs right now from the Driverz website, then there is still a glitch in that code. So we're also going to be looking at that as we go through Driverz Dev. And really what the Driverz Dev live YouTube channel is doing is allowing you to get a glimpse at what it is that Web3 developers do. Web3 website developers or full stack developers. Basically what we're doing is utilizing frameworks to store and process data that can be presented on a website. So when they're saying stack, they're referring to different levels between a database and a user front end. And the user front end is what I've been spending a lot of time in right now. Basically just HTML and CSS is going to be what defines your user front end, but that all depends on the data that you're getting from the blockchain. And in normal stack development, they're going to use databases that are like an SQL database, or even here there's a Firebase database that they're implementing. But Web3 developer is going to go and say, well, I'm just going to use the blockchain as my database. And I heard I was speaking to a developer the other day, and they were talking about how the blockchain is not immutable because you can always go through and change the data. And when you think about the blockchain being immutable, that just means that once you run a transaction and you do change the data, I mean, that's what transactions do, then you can always view that transaction. Right? Yes, you can. And so the ledger in itself is immutable. And so that's why we call it immutable. Not because you can't adjust the data. And the other thing is too, if you're going to be running transactions to adjust data, you need to have your private keys. So don't think that you can just go through and pick anybody's contract and go into their databases and adjust all of their data without having the private key that can access that contract. Okay, so we did this for here, and this should load up. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and look at that database for Driverz. So this is public information. Could not be more public information. And these are the pack transactions. But basically, here you can go in and we can look at really any contracts. And you can just view the interactions being the transactions. Right. So here is just a bunch of people revealing their NFTs. Now you can tell, you just go to the script. And this is a cadence script, and it calls the reveal thumbnail. Right. Which first they're going to borrow the Car Cup collection resource. and within it should be this function. We'd have to look at the code. I don't think I'm going to go through the code right now because we just have to look at the website. See, we have everything up. But yeah, that's the database as far as back-end development goes. That's going to be writing contracts and transactions and scripts for the database or the blockchain. And the database can also actually store your assets and move your assets along with maintaining a transaction history that tells you all the details as far as how your assets have been moved. Okay, so now we have this, and now we're going to do the mobile check. So on a mobile check, it's going to look like this. We just make the thing smaller, right? So we look here, and mobile setup for the thing. This spacing, way too much. This spacing is also too much. Looks good. So here we want to stack these. Okay, so good. Example is our toolbox. I think we went there. Here's the toolbox. See how everything's stacked? And when I open it, it's all big. So this means it's mobile ready here. Okay. So how are we going to do that? That just means, again, we're thinking practical here. Well, practically speaking, I'm going to use this template. I'm going to go through into the JS file, which is a JSX file, which contains the HTML, which describes the content that is being displayed here. And the CSS is going to be the thing that formats the content. Okay, so on this page, I see here these two things in the toolbox. We don't really need those anymore. So let's go back to PowerShell. PowerShell is our best friend. We'll go back here. We're just going to go back one, and then I could have changed there too, but I didn't. Tools. Okay, then I go through ls, and I'm going to go code to just type a little bit. Tool CSS. Yeah, we want that. What's going on the Driverz dev channel? One watcher, that's me. I reckon. Don't think that you can just go through and pick anybody's contract and go into their databases and adjust all of their data without having. All right, let's get back to it. Go back to PowerShell because we did the CSS, but now I need to do the JS, which, like I said, is just JSX containing the HTML and all that stuff. Okay. So yeah, so first thing we'll do is we'll get rid of those extras. So this is JSX up top, and it tells you basically how to interact. So like if you do onClick init account, this is a function or a constant defined up outside of the HTML in the JavaScript section. Okay, so we want this to be gone. So how do we do that? We just go bracket / star. Then come down here and do star / bracket. Okay. Good. So do that. And then we'll look at here. So we have them column tiled is what it's called. Okay, so here's our second row. Yeah. Now we're just saying the second row, which I believe is how I define all the rows, or second row up here is repeating columns, 3 columns, and they all take up equal space. And after 3, then it just goes and repeats down lower, and if there's only 2 or 1, then that's fine too. So we're going to change that so that it just repeats, but 1 time. And that'll get it to stack. Okay, so now we go to our Driverz CSS, and then we can go here and we do at media. Well, how did that work? Max width 768. Then we need to see how it's called. It's just called row. I'm just going to check it. See, right here, 6, 1FR. So if I go down here and I type row, grid, template columns, then we just do 1FR. Okay. Beautiful. We go back to our local setup.